My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content. Hey, gang, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. I mean, you're accustomed to alternative investments when it comes to real estate. Our special guest today, Fred Hubler, knows all about that and a whole bunch of other alternatives to that alternative investment, because Fred is a very, very accomplished and experienced independent financial advisor. So he's not working with the big guys particularly. And he's one of those smart guys that is a Forbes contributor. So Frederick, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me. Thank you very much for having me.
So Fred, you've been in the whole wealth building world for a lot of years. Maybe zoom out, give us a little snapshot of what you do, who you work with, what the big benefit is that you bring to people's lives.
So the 5,000 foot level, I grew up in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. I still say water. No one worked harder than my parents. And I always felt the rich got richer because I knew things the rest of us didn't. I'm here to tell you 20 years in the industry, not only is that 100% true, it's a government program called accreditation. So when I started to do my own business, literally in the same zip code as Vanguard, I knew I wouldn't be cheaper, wasn't trying to be bigger. I focused on what Harvard and Yale did with their money, the foundations, and all big foundations and endowments and all those things. They all kind of look the same. 70 to 80% of their money is not in the stock market. It's in things called alternative investments. And 22 years ago, I was in left field doing that. Today, it's a $9 trillion business. Your listeners are part of if they're doing real estate, and it's not a ticker. It's real estate they're doing. So it's nice to have been in left field, and now the pack's moved. And when I got asked by Forbes.com to write, I wouldn't take the phone call because I thought trying to sell something. And then our PR guy's like, hey, no, they want to pay you and hire you to write about alternatives. That blew my mind, Dave, because alternatives have always been around. Like it's not new. But it's new that that it's kind of getting in the vernacular. So what we do is we provide access to FINRA and SEC regulated alternative investments, which are typically boutique-y in the fact that they're not going to be at the big brokerage firms because
so
it takes
like
them.
What?
So we'll have access to a piece of real estate that's in a new version of a tenant in common called a DST. Stands for Delaware Statutory Trust. It's out there. We're not the only ones that do it. But if you buy that, you are buying an incremental piece of the real estate. Well, some of those properties are on the smaller side. They're 80 million and then they're 50% leverage, which means there's only like 40 million of equity. Vanguard just made that why I told you that story. So these are not small properties, but they're small in the ocean of what's out there. And when I decided to start my own thing, and what got me to the alternative is not only that 70% of the money that those big endowments have are in alternatives, it's the fact that there's not that many tickers out in the market. If you look at what actually people own, it's about 800 tickers. What's actually available is about 5,400. That's not a lot. And we think it's this gigantic ocean. It's a 4-inch lake. And the smartest kids are not at that beach. They're doing their own things. They're doing real estate. They're doing private equity. So doing it for 22 years, we've seen it all. For your listeners, I have some ideas. If they don't want to go passive, how can they use what I do to help them do what they do? So we're going to spend some time on that. And then if they do want to start to unwind their real estate portfolio without getting rid of all the tax benefits and without paying capital gains, I definitely want to talk about that. And I think they're the two biggest needle moving things that people don't know are available. Most people don't know are available that are in the wheelhouse and the buy box of your listeners.
Hey there, if you're a capital raiser, a syndicator, or a fund manager, and you're looking for a steady flow of incoming accredited investor leads, then go ahead, grab a free copy of my new book, How to Get 20 Accredited Investor Meetings Every Month Without Cold Calling, Networking, or Chasing People. You can get that at 20accreditedinvestorsbook.com. Again, that's the number 20accreditedinvestorsbook.com. Awesome, Fred. That sounds good. You piqued my curiosity, so let's start with number one.
All right. What was number one? Remind.
Oh, it's a quiz now, is it?
Yeah.
Number one was you're talking about how you're helping real estate investors, I think, utilize something that you guys do to buy
Yes.
properties from the
Perfect. Okay.
owners, I believe.
So what we did before and what we typically do, and we do this for our clients, we can do it for anybody. And you don't need us to do this. So that's really I'm here to give, I'm here to serve, not to sell. If someone is so the the seller of the real estate, in order to have a different option besides paying taxes and utilize an alternative investment, I'll walk you through, they have to be an accredited investor, which is 1 million of net worth, not counting their primary house, or 300,000 of joint income. So that's not everybody, but if your listeners are trying to buy $1 million property, that's an investment property, you're done. Like that's it. Like that's all you need to do. You don't have to do bones, and you don't have to do
Okay,
it.
so the seller's got to be a accredited investor. You're
Yeah,
trying to buy a property from them.
yeah.
This is a secret ninja sauce that we can use that helps the seller what?
Get off the hump. Because a lot of times the sellers, if they're going to do a 1031, which is Latin for my headache for your headache, like it's basically has to be a like kind exchange, and all the numbers have to add up perfectly. So
The timing has to be absolute perfectly. Have to be
in the real
perfect.
world, that doesn't happen. So
Yeah.
there was a tenant in common structure, which has been around for still around now, but no one uses it because you have to all the investors have to agree. So I don't know if your Thanksgiving's like mine, but we don't agree on what to have for dessert. So about 20 years ago, a company went to the IRS and said, "Can we use a Delaware Statutory Trust, put a property in it, and allow people have incremental exposure to that property at the property level?" So not a REIT, not an LLC, not a limited partnership, at the property level, like 0.0025 of whatever it is. So that's now available. It's been around for 20 plus years. So people have used this DST concept saying, "Hey, I'd like to buy your property." And the seller's like, "Well, I don't really know what to do with it if I sell it. I don't want to 1031 into a new headache. And I don't want to pay the capital gains." Like that's all valid. We hear that all the time.
Right.
What they can do is the seller, we're happy to do this, and I'm sure there's other firms out there. We work with them to say, okay, if you do sell it to whoever, here are the options that are open right now that are individual properties that accept 1031 money, and you then become the seller then becomes an owner, a partial owner of an Amazon distribution center, a senior housing, senior living, a student housing. Like they get to pick what kind of property. And it's not a black box. You know what it is at the address level, because with a 1031, you have to say, "I sold this to Dave and I exchanged this over here, and here's the address." Our job is to vet all the programs out there, and as important, keep it from blowing up. So if you have 50% leverage on what you sell, I got to make sure you're in a DST that has 50% leverage or more. So you still
Okay.
have to,
Okay. You're losing me for a second here, Fred.
yeah, shoot.
So I'm gonna slow you down and see if I can get my
Right.
pea
If you
brain
play this
around this.
podcast back half speed, I'm normal speed.
Even slower.
All right.
Okay, so let's use a fictitious example, right? The property seller has I don't know, they've got a free and clear 12 unit apartment building, a small apartment building. Let's say it's a couple $1 million, free and clear. They are interested in selling it. They don't want to 1031 exchange it. They don't want to pay a schwack of capital gains. I am the potential buyer. Walk us through how that could work. I'm the buyer, they're the
Sure.
seller. How do you help me and them?
So they would still sell to you. You still buy it. They still do a 1031, but instead of going from a 1031 of a property they know into a property they have to manage that they don't know, they pick, prior to selling it to you, they pick and reserve equity in a DST that fits their risk profile and their income
And you
profile.
find them that
We find them that.
DST.
And it's
Okay.
SEC and FINRA regulated. It's not out of my trunk. And it's the big names. It's Inland, it's Cantor Fitzgerald. They're not writing the check to me. We're just getting carve outs of a property and saying, okay, you have this much equity, you can help people place. The minute the seller, the minute the person gets into the DST, they get income the very next month. Every DST is already built, cash flowing, and tenanted before you ever show up. So it's not a development. It's not, I hope people move in. They're buying, these DSTs have properties in it that have tenants in it. And now the rent and the income you get is obviously based on the rent. The rent you get is either fixed if it's triple net and an Amazon distribution center, or it changes daily if it's storage. And so the rent you get the first year is kind of because they know the rent roll for now. But the income you get in subsequent years, it's the sponsor's job to increase that income, because that will increase the property value. So the good news is There's no capital gains because it's a real exchange. This is 1031 exchange. You still need a QI. That's not us. We have places, I'm sure, there's a lot of good QIs out there. You get income the very next month. The downside is, and the analogy I use is you're on the airplane. I'm picking where you tell me if you're going to New Mexico or Jamaica. I make sure we're on the plane, but you're not driving the plane. Neither am I. Like once you're on the plane, we're on the plane for 5 to 8 years. Now that could be a showstopper for some people. For others, like, dude, I'd love to have a piece of an Amazon and get paid every month for 5 to 8 years. But let's say you do 100,000. Again, you have to be accredited. The buyer has to be accredited, but the money doesn't have to be $1 million of equity. So let's just do the million just for easy math. You get income the very next month. Right now, all DSTs are in the range of 4 to 7% income. Now, the 4% ones typically, and I would say typically because I'm a fiduciary, I can't say all the time or guaranteed, but typically the 4% ones have a value add component at the property level. So I personally bought into a 55 and over mobile home park in Florida that only generated 4% of income for me for the first 2 years.
Yeah, cash on cash.
Yeah, we can get that in money market. Like you can get that in Apple Cash. But at the park, it's a mobile home park. At the park level, it was generating about 6.25. The difference was going to make the pickleball court and add the different, add additional pads. So in 5 to 8 years, I will be selling a better property because I elected to take a haircut to make the property better. So that's one type of DST. Most people, and using your analogy of the apartment, let's say that apartment building was generating, $120,000 of income a year. I then only show that person DSTs that generated that kind of income. Because why would you sell it for even less money? And so let's say you're on the plane, you get the DST, you're in it for 5 to 8 years. It could be 2. Like when things were frothy, these DSTs made really good 18, 20% a year in 2 or 3 years. I don't think that's happening in our lifetime, or at least in the near future. So let's say the million in 5 to 8 years is, 1.5, 1.8 million, whatever the number ends up being, and the plane lands. The investor in this case can walk away with 3 options. Door number 1, walk away and pay taxes, including the deferred taxes that they didn't pay when they did the exchange. Normally, most sane people don't do door number 1, but it's an option.
That's an option.
Yeah.
Pay a
Door
ton of
number
tax.
2 is why I have the smile and smirk in my house. I've been doing this for 20 years. Door number 2 is, okay, I gave you $1 million. It's worth 1.8. Hit me again. We can 1031 into another, and we do, into another DST. We can change the asset type. You can go for senior living all the way to student housing, but you just deferred the capital gain. Now, at some point, now I just met you. You seem like a nice guy, so I'm going to kill me first. Let's say I die, and the $1 million in the real estate's now worth 7 way in the future. My family, my kids will get a date of death step up. So that element, that swap until you drop of door number 2, that's really compelling for most people, especially when they've depreciated all the real estate to it's now going to have CapEx, and now they have to put a roof on this. Get out of that, get into a new DST that has a new property in it that you take income for 5, you clip a coupon, it's out of the market. The DST won't lose in value until the statement won't lose. The person that owns, like the canner or whoever is the sponsor, they're not going to sell it for a loss. So the reason it's 5 to 8 is if it's in year 5, it's the worst time to sell, student housing or whatever it is, they're going to wait. You're going to still get income, blah, blah, blah. But there's 3 options. Door number 1 is walk away. Door number 2 is keep swapping it. But door number 3, and this is where it really, would benefit your listeners as well. You can 1031 when it lands. Again, you can leave the airport as door number 1. You pay taxes. Get on another flight is door number 2. You go into another, fly to another place. Door number 3 is you fly private. You can 1031 out of a DST when it lands back into in a property that you own and control 100%. So I have people during 2020 when we didn't know what was happening and they had all this real estate that was going to have future CapEx. They sold it, not gave it to me, but invested through us in these programs with the thought that at some point when it comes back, they might start to get back into real estate, maybe at a different price point, a better price point. So 3 options. The companies that are out there, almost all the the kind of properties that you'll see in a DST are all institutional. An interesting part of a DST, and this is less risk and less return than what your listeners probably are doing themselves when they're directly investing in real estate, but it's an option. Let's say you have 50 grand to do real estate. You're going to have a down payment of 50 grand. You're not buying the nicest property and you're probably not going to have the best tenants. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say, at age 52, I know how life works. That same 50 grand could go in as cash, not a 1031, into a DST that now you have 50 grand of $800
You
million.
got a fractional ownership of
$800 million. Yeah. Something you
Yeah.
would never own ever.
Yeah.
And then that same thing happens. So a lot of clients that are doctors, a lot of money, lot of smarts, not a lot of time, and the worst landlord you'd ever have because he'd never call you back. Those people take some of their money and they start to build up real estate, and this is what we do, so that they can start the passive income. Real estate has all these tax benefits. The same tax benefits you have owning real estate, you have with a DST. You get your piece of the depreciation. You get your piece of the amortization. And so the fact that you can reset your cost basis because now you're in a new property, like there's some real good stuff. As a value to your listeners, we just rolled out, it's a calculator that also has an educational component for this DST stuff.
Sure. Well, let us know.
It's
As time flies when we're having
DST.
fun. Yeah. So
Yeah,
let us know where you can
DST
get it.
hyphen exchange. You don't even have to log in to get the calculator. You can just use it to 1031 into your own property. Yeah,
DST-exchange.com.
.com.
.com.
Because I
Okay.
think anything that's like a .net, I think that's like a generic website. So I'm only going to ever have my and I'm not on there. It's just a service that is out there. But basically, the calculator's there, not for a DST, just for any kind of exchange. And then if there is a deeper dive on there, I also, as you said, I write for Forbes. If you go to Forbes.com and put my last name in, you'll see all the articles. They're free to you. Forbes pays me to write them, but you can, read them for free. I think you get 5 a month if you don't pay for it. But there's a DST article I wrote about DSTs there, and it's not one certain DST, just the generational part of it. Where I'm seeing investors use it is either to entice the seller to get off the bike, to get off the mound, or if they want to get in real estate, but it's an asset class they're not comfortable with, because not everyone can run storage. Not everyone wants to be a senior living, but those things didn't close during COVID. If anything, rent went up because where are you going to go? So there's a lot of unique things, and you know exactly what location the DST is at. So not many people are creating or buying DSTs in New York for taxes. Like there's, so Florida, Texas, there's a lot of DST friendly environments that are just friendly from a tax perspective because you do own real estate in that state if you have a DST in that state. So some people get confused, like, no, it's still a piece of property. You're just a passive landlord.
Makes sense. Fred, this has been very, very interesting. Thanks for
Awesome.
explaining how that works. Awesome. Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in. We will see you on the next one. Take care. Hey there. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewsyou.com.